Hey, Simon here from Harewood Travel. We're here to talk today about Switzerland. We are two experts today, Catherine and Karen from Ski Independence. So we're going to talk a little bit about Switzerland. It's probably perceived as being one of the most, special places in Europe to ski. You've got high-level skiing, you've got great scenery, and you've got lots of stuff. Today we're going to find out what the reality is and understand about, the interesting places to go. Why would you go to Switzerland? How does it compare to the resorts? And I thought it was also about does it offer value? Because value is much more important than talking strictly about prices. So, good morning. Let's talk about Switzerland. Why is it a place that people should consider perhaps above other places in terms of Europe?
Well, I'm a huge fan of skiing in Switzerland. I think it offers amazing holiday experiences. You have the beautiful chocolate box villages full of chalets and cobbled streets, plenty of charm that is maybe missing from certain other destinations. You've got huge ski areas, high altitude skiing, fantastic service, and an infrastructure where everything just works.
I think the infrastructure thing is very important. We were talking very briefly about that before, weren't we? And it's not something that I'd really thought very much about. But just to explain that in a bit more detail in terms of how that would say Switzerland compares to other places, and how clients get to resorts and stuff like that.
So basically, all of the resorts we work with, you can access by public transport. So from the airport, so the two main gateway airports would be Zurich and Geneva, both of which have train stations actually within the airport infrastructure. You can jump on a train to any of the ski destinations. Some of them will require a connection. Sometimes it's a connection onto a bus, but it's all
Yeah,
integrated. The
right.
timetables work, and it's a really nice way to travel, that just takes all the stress out of, transfer Saturdays in the Alps can be a little bit hectic. So going by train takes that out of the equation.
I think it was very interesting before you were saying that something like 60% of your clients choose to take public transport to the resorts and obviously 40% don't. I think there's some people who would always perceive it as public transport, perhaps not for them. But it was also interesting that you were saying that once people have tried the public transport, that like you say, it's a relaxed experience. You've got great scenery and it gets you into the resort. It's integrated. It does work. I think it's a nice way of doing it. So you arrive in the resort not so frazzled. You've not been hassled at the airport trying to find who is going to take you there or find a taxi or whatever. And I think that makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Certainly
Yeah.
does. And what is so great about the Swiss public transport network is that it's reliable. So, I've done some journeys through Switzerland where I've maybe had two or three connections. It's something that I wouldn't attempt in the UK, but in Switzerland, I've done it and it works.
And I think it's also something to remember that actually, maybe outside of the winter season, but in the summer, people are going to Switzerland on holidays focused on doing these rail journeys, and skiers can do these beautiful scenic journeys actually as a mode of transport getting to the resort. So, that's I think you can almost sell it as sort of, think of it as part of the journey rather than, or part of the holiday rather than just a mode of transport.
I think I'm right in thinking there's a thing called the ice train, isn't there? Which you can take, which is it's like the glass top, and it's a reasonably standard service. It's not a super specialised thing. It is part of the sort of general
Well,
network train service,
I
isn't it?
think there's maybe two things that you're talking about. So there is something called the Glacier Express, which is a panoramic rail journey linking Zermatt and St. Moritz.
Yes.
And that is a special service that runs, it's usually once or twice a day. But another thing that you have on Swiss trains is a lot of the normal trains that link up the ski resorts, panoramic carriages. So depending on the train that you take, a lot of them have these huge windows where you
Yes.
can look outside and take in the view.
Okay. So let's okay, that's the in terms of getting you there. What about the actual sort of snow conditions? What about the heights? What about the resorts themselves? I mean, as I said, we were talking about value, and I think that you've talked there a little bit about the if you like, the prettiness of the resorts. So you can go up the mountain. You've got some very nice skiing in terms of places you can go to, place you have lunch or have a cup of coffee or whatever. But what about the skiing itself? How extensive are the resorts?
So it depends where you ski in Switzerland, but Switzerland boasts some of the biggest ski resorts anywhere in the world. So if you're looking for, huge ski areas to explore. That's definitely
Mhm.
available in Switzerland. Places like the Four Valleys, where Verbi is located, the Zermatt ski area, which is linked to Cervinia in Italy, the Jungfrau ski region, where Wengen's part of, and San Moritz. These huge
Yeah.
ski areas that are on a par with any other big name ski resort that you'll have come across in other countries.
And in terms of the resort themselves, I know we had a previous video where we talked about Canada, and one of the great things you were talking about in Canada, in particular in Whistler, the extensive amount of ski schools that are available that covers all sorts of abilities. Again, what's the sort of ski school situation like in Switzerland?
Yeah, you've got same as you would find in Canada. You have a range of different ski schools with products for everyone from little kids through to the most advanced skiers looking for off-piste experiences and things like that. So yeah, there's a ski instructor or ski school out there for every ability and all sorts of different experiences too. So things like snowshoeing, guided snowshoe experiences, or cross country skiing, and things maybe people haven't tried but want to have a go at. And I think the Swiss resorts lend themselves to multi-activity holidays as much as ski
Right,
holidays. So
right.
there's always an opportunity to try something different.
Right, right. And in terms of the resorts themselves, the gondolas tend, I mean, of course, this is a kind of a bit of a generalization, but you'd be able to take the gondola from the center of the village. I mean, quite often you'd be, or the town, you'd quite often be able to walk to them, or is the bus system very important for that?
Yeah, I would say that that's true. I mean, the great thing about Switzerland and what makes the resorts so beautiful is that most of them have grown organically. They started off as villages in their own right, and then they have developed into ski resorts. And I would say that most of the time there is a gondola in the centre of town within walking distance of
Mhm.
accommodation. And if there's not, then the Swiss ski resort will always have a public free shuttle bus taking you to the gondola. So everything's designed and planned to make the skiing as easy as possible. And the number one comment that we get from people who return from Switzerland is saying everything just works. And that's why Switzerland is such a special ski destination.
Okay. I mean, I think that says a lot in itself, doesn't it? That, let's say people go with preconceived ideas about places, and it probably helps that they've been to, maybe it's Italy, maybe it's France, or maybe it's Austria, and they've had a certain kind of experience. But the experience you get in Switzerland, I think, is very much about you enjoy the skiing because you can relax about everything else because it's all taken care of. You don't need to worry about the lifts. You don't need to worry about the buses getting to and from the airport. It's all been so well organized that you can forget about it. And I think
Yeah.
that makes the skiing experience that much more enjoyable, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I don't think I could have put it better myself that it's about removing the stress. And the other thing that I would say about Switzerland for the skiing that's really important is that many of the Swiss ski resorts, the slopes are a bit quieter than some other European destinations, just because there's slightly fewer tourists that maybe go there. And that is something that, from my perspective, makes skiing in Switzerland brilliant.
So the big question, obviously, I wasn't going to ask, but is a key one for people. So that therefore means lift queues are shorter,
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely.
and that
And
again that adds
noticeably
to the
so.
experience. Sorry, I interrupted you there, Catherine. Sorry, but I say I guess that adds to the experience again, where it's a pretty relaxed day skiing. You can ski hard, but you're going to be able to ski from lift to lift without queuing too much. That's a big sort of thing, I think, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's noticeably so. And even in school holidays, there just isn't quite the same volume of crowds that you'll get in the sort of big alpine resorts.
So I think that just goes back to one of the things I raised right at the beginning in the introduction. If we talk about Switzerland, I think people's perceptions would be it would be reasonably expensive to go there. But again, the important thing is about value. So you're going to be able to get to the resorts relatively easy. When you get there, everything works. There's going to be no problems. You've got really nice slopes in terms of uh, nice cafes, lots of atmosphere, lots of sort of character. And then when you're actually skiing around the mountains, the queues are not going to be so big. They're going to be less than probably in other countries. And that makes the overall experience feel, I think, a bit richer, doesn't it? Which is really what it's about. It's not about, okay, it cost me this, that, and I can go somewhere else and it's that. It's about what did it make me feel like? And I think I don't know how you guys, what your customers say about, your clients say about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And the combination of efficiency, but also friendliness. In Switzerland, the service and wherever you go, whether that's collecting your lift pass, stopping for a coffee, having lunch, they care about their tourism industry and they want to look after guests properly. And that just shines through at every level in Switzerland.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant. Look, I think the proposition for Switzerland is very good because it's organized. Things work. You don't have to queue so much. You've got lots of character and lots of personality. And I think that's really important because you can go to some places and while you might have fairly extensive skiing, you've got cafes and stuff, there's a lack of character, lack of feel. I remember the first time I went to the States, I mean, the slopes and the snow was absolutely amazing, but the cafes and the character of the resort was just non-existent. So it was quite interesting. I mean, that's a while ago, but it's quite interesting. Switzerland has all of that sort of feel and enjoyment that you can have without feeling rushed or stressed.
Absolutely. And also, it's worth noting that in fact, all of the Swiss ski resorts, they work equally well if you're not skiing.
That's a big point, isn't it? Yeah.
They're just really nice places to spend time, whether that's taking the ski lift up the mountain to go and have a coffee or a lunch in a panoramic terrace. And it's not all about skiing from first to last lift and never stopping. It's more than that. Skiing, you can have a wonderful holiday in the Swiss Alps.
Look, I think that's fantastic. I think that says a lot about the resort, that, if you like, the richness of the experience. Of course, the skiing's important. The fact there's very extensive skiing there, the fact that it's really relatively easy for UK customers to get to is also very important. But the experience you have when you get there is possibly unlike anything else in Europe. I think that's the feel about it, isn't it?
Yeah. And the quality goes through everything. So, you'll never have a bad meal in Switzerland, on the mountain, in hotels. And, a lot of the hotels that we sell there will offer, half board packages, which have your evening meals and things included, which is an additional way of adding value,
Yes.
really quality product. So yeah, it's a great all round experience.
Excellent. Look, I think that says a lot about it. It's looking beyond what you see, if you like, on the written page, because that feel and that cultural sort of feel and that richness of experience is only something that really comes from, I think, people talking about things, isn't it? Their experience, your experience of how clients have enjoyed it when you've been there, how you've enjoyed it, and that really brings something like it alive. And that's what makes it such an attractive resort. We're trying to make it more popular. We're probably trying to make the slopes busier than they are, but that's obviously part of our job. But you're still going to have that, I don't know, calmness about it. I think that's maybe a little bit different, isn't it?
And I think that the best endorsement I can give for skiing holidays in Switzerland is that for my own personal ski holidays, I have been to Switzerland for the last 5 years. So that
That's
speaks
a
for
great
that.
recommendation. I think we'll leave it there. We don't need to say anything else. I hope people have got a lot from that. And as I say, I'd just like to thank you both very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot.